All right, welcome back to Digging for Wisdom. I am Ward Fasold, the Wizard. That is Professor Diggs. Diggsy, we only have about 7, 8 more days to wait until they start cutting on these lights and we're seeing real games. And as Diggs has said many times, and me too, the real bangers are the first 3 weeks. That's when you get to cross district and play some of the big dogs versus big dogs. I'm excited about it. As I said last week, when that temperature hits 100 degrees, you know football is right around the corner.
Yeah, I saw the 10-day outlook. I got a little bit depressed. We're not going to turn this into a meteorology podcast, but I see a lot of 105s going forward. I don't know what that is in wet bulb language. We had to figure that out with UIL World. Did you send out your guidelines for your shooters about wet bulb rules? Is that
Exactly.
something you have to do?
They got to bring a wet towel, put it around their neck, all sorts of stuff, man. Take breathers. Don't miss plays though.
But this year is the first time I feel like I've seen in social media. I mean, people make fun of scrimmage season because some people call it wins and losses. I know I do when Plano East is playing Highland Park. We're undefeated against Highland Park in our scrimmages. But I've been seeing these graphics now. I saw like Trinity shuts out Duncanville 7-0 in like a 4-minute live quarter or something where Trinity started with the ball. I'm like, what kind of world are we living in where we're like taking scores of 4 minutes in a quarter? I saw that Southlake absolutely destroyed Denton Ryan 28-0 in the scrimmage score. So we're getting all kinds of weird data, and I don't put much stock into that. But I will say, I remember about 10 years ago, Ward, Garland was supposed to be really good, and Newman Smith just absolutely obliterated them in the scrimmage. And then Newman Smith, that was the year they went 3 rounds in the playoffs. So sometimes you can get a little bit of perspective in these scrimmages where a team that comes out of nowhere could all of a sudden be like, okay, we got to keep an eye on them because nobody saw that Newman Smith team coming.
Right. And to me, it's just to see actual 11-on-11 football going on. If you got that itch, you just go out there and watch it for a little bit. I don't take to granted any scoring. Granted, I wasn't supposed to be keeping scoring when I coached my kids T-Boss, but I had all of them up here. I had our 5-2 record up in my head the whole time. But it's for a fan that's impartial or even partial, you just want to see your guys out there competing, hitting, seeing what they even look like. What's the glow up on a junior to a senior? What do they look like? Because I'm going to start the barbecue in the tailgate next week. So I don't want to waste my time on the good sausages and meats if I think this team's going to stink this year. So that's why a lot of people are out there for that. But man, we talked 5A last week. You're going to do your small school deal at some point. Let's talk 6A, brother. You want to get into the 6A and find out who are contenders and who are pretenders?
Yeah, we got to do a deep dive, and there's a lot of names that are kind of what you would expect, but I'm really looking at a few fun storylines this year that you got to keep an eye on, and we'll just kind of break them down as we get going. And we'll start with District 3 6A, where we got all of a sudden the new school in there. You might kind of recognize some of these schools in Arlington ISD, but all of a sudden Aledo is now with this group, but they're not returning too much. And last year they had, in my opinion, we talked about it in the 5A show, one of the bigger meltdowns with Lone Star. Well, that was because Aledo had one of the bigger meltdowns to give Lone Star that win in that game. The second half, we had a crazy onside kick in that game, and then Aledo just could not finish it. But this year, I think this district really works out well for them. One of the storylines we've always been talking about with Aledo is what their 145 game district winning streak or some ridiculous number. We're about to add 7 more to that because I don't see them losing at all this year, even with only 5 returning starters. But Trey Williams, the Louisville star, is now on the, I believe he's cleared. All is good. And Nash McElreed, who was the quarterback last year, is now at a school. I know what you love it, right on the beach in Mission Viejo, California.
Oh wow, how about that?
So goodbye, Nash, and hello, Trey.
Tan. He'll get himself a nice tan out there.
He'll enjoy himself out there in the SIPs. I think they call it the SIPs out there in California football. But Robbie Jones, I mean, he feels like he's getting his sea legs under him. He's understanding his role and kind of getting that culture out there. And the culture is good. I mean, Robbie Jones has, I think, done a really good job in some really big shoes with Coach Buchanan and Coach Wood over there. But Aledo just looks like they're going to be good. And they still got some really good players coming back. Alex Patton, Cole Cox are a couple of names to keep an eye on from the defensive side of the ball. Caden Weaver. Last year, Ward, their defense was really, really good. And they had a lot of depth. And I think Alito is going to jump out. And I actually want you to tell the story, Ward, because we kind of got some breaking news in June when you had the cameras out there at a 7-on-7 tournament where all of a sudden we're watching Plano East and Arlington Lamar, where you saw a quarterback not what we're expecting to be the quarterback, but was sitting there just
So,
watching his
yeah,
team.
exactly. Now he was supposed to transfer to DeSoto, and I believe that got nixed. But he was there supporting his squad, right there with them the whole time. And the name escapes me. You put me on the
Jaden
spot. But
Shaw.
Jaden Shaw, that's right. Jaden Shaw. He talked to me the whole time. Obviously, there's no rosters at 7-on-7, so he let me know which kid was which. And I was like, this sounds like a kid that didn't really want to. Maybe he wanted to make the move, but maybe parts of him didn't. But he was. I don't know if he back with Lamar or where's he at? He's just
I
out
thought he was
there.
still at DeSoto, so I don't
Okay.
know what's happening with him. I mean, we do not get our official transfer rosters. I thought he was going to be over at DeSoto. I thought that would be a big piece for them in depth this year.
Yeah.
But
Somebody will quote this and let us know if where he wound up. But I was hearing after that game, sources were telling me I'm not sure he's going to get cleared for that. But it's DeSoto. DeSoto seems to get everybody cleared when they come over there. So perhaps he is on the squad. But he did kind of miss his teammates there, and he was a big part of them winning last year.
And what's incredible is when you look at this returning starter graphic that we have coming up, all four Arlington schools are heavily returning core pieces of their team. So I think we're going to see a lot of competitive football in the middle of this district. I don't think Alito is going to be winning these games 49-0, 63-0 like we saw when they're in 5A. I think they're going to get pushed. I think they're going to be 21, 28 point favorites. But I think they're going to have to work till the fourth quarter in all of these games against these top four teams. So I think that's going to help Alito get a little bit better as opposed to that, where they have maybe Richland and Denton Ryan as kind of two games and then nothing else for the rest of the year. Even Weatherford, to a certain extent, they've got some players coming back where I can look at and go, okay, I think Weatherford could be competitive. And Sam Houston is very young. I think they're going to take some steps up. Granbury is very young. But Arlington Bowie, I've gone back and forth on. I picked Lamar to start out with at number 2, and then I thought once they lost Shaw, I kind of put them down to number 3. If they got Shaw back, I think I might move them back to number 2. That's how close Bowie and Lamar are. And if you look at my AI model, it's got them within a half a point of each other. So I mean, that's how close they are as it is. Arlington Lamar's got Braylon Williams, the incredible linebacker, coming back. They got Markavian Gully, the really good defensive back, coming back. Talon Martinez at linebacker. So there's a lot of pieces for Arlington Lamar. And you said that quarterback, when he was playing and beating Plano East, that the backup quarterback looked
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah,
So,
he was connecting. He was connecting for sure.
and then for Arlington Bowie, I mean, they got AJ Burdo coming back. They got Mason Nichols. He got to see some time in that Jesuit game last year. Maxwell Nichols, who had over 1,000 receiving yards last year. So Arlington Bowie has got a lot of returning talent coming back. I think for the fourth playoff spot is going to be where the battle is going to come in, because you got Arlington Martin and Arlington. And Martin, for the last couple of years, Coach Reeves has not been able to overcome the hump. It's like, he's got the team, but he still
Yeah.
is in the shadows of the last coach. My,
Wait, Bob Wager, but I wanted to talk to you about that because you made a famous statement last year that went throughout the rest of the season, end of an era. It feels like Martin, and then we're going to get to Trinity later. It almost seems like their eras ended 3 or 4 years ago, and they're trying to get back to that. Is there a? I mean, you have them scheduled in here at 4. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Can we get the Warriors back to where they were, or do they, or no?
well, when I ran my AI model this past year, I had it go back the last 5 years and it had it tell me the teams I'm most consistently wrong about. So I could try to find out what my own biases were. And Arlington Martin was like number 3 on the list
Well,
because
you
I
knew that. You knew that. You would say it every week. I'm going to get burned by this, but I'm
uh,
going with Martin.
and AI models like Plano East was number 1, Celeste was
Of
number 2,
course.
Arlington Martin was number 3, and 2 of those are bits. Arlington Martin is just a genuine curiosity on why they can't, it's like I look at the talent. It looks like they should be good. It looks like on paper they should be taking these steps and winning these games. But then their defense gives up 70 points, and you're just head scratching. I don't know how they didn't make the playoffs last year, and they had Haltom in that district, and they couldn't beat Haltom at any point over the last couple of years. And I look at what they've got coming back this year. Javian Jones-Priest looks like an incredible player. Chase Duvall had 1,300 yards passing last year. I don't see why Arlington Martin couldn't theoretically be number two, but how many times can I get burned in this district? Arlington Martin just feels like a sleeping giant. And
Yeah.
eventually they're going to wake up, but they haven't the last couple of years. So at some point, your past production is indicative of your future behavior. And Arlington Martin just has not done it. And I've consistently been wrong about that. And Arlington's bringing back 7 starters on both sides of the ball. Kason Brown, an incredible wide receiver. It feels like he can do just about anything for this team. Alex Moore, they've got a lot of defensive speed in their secondary. So I could see why Arlington feels like they feel disrespected at this pick as well, because Arlington looks like they should be right there at the end of the day. Weatherford has got 2 big players. They got a new coach, Marshall Williams. He came from Lovejoy.
Mm.
He's got a lot of coaching experience, obviously being under the Todd Dodge
Coached at
learning
Timber
tree.
Creek too, right? Timber
Yeah, he
Creek a
coached at
couple years
Timber
ago?
Creek a couple years ago, and I mean, he actually took a demotion to come over and be the offensive coordinator for Dodge, and now he got his head coaching job. Cutter Kennedy had 1,500 yards last year. He's returning at quarterback. DJ Quimby is a name you need to remember for Weatherford. He had 1,200 rushing yards, 180 receiving yards last year. So there's almost 3,000 yards of production for Weatherford, and I think that they're going to take a little bit of a step. Marshall Williams has been an offensive savant, so I think Weatherford may be playing some of these 60 to 50 games like some of the Arlington ISD teams played last year. I think Granbury and Arlington, Sam Houston are going to struggle, but keep an eye on Sam Houston. I feel like they're a team that can take a step. I don't think they're going to take a step in the wins and losses. I think they're going to play more competitive football this year. Bobby Watkins is the right coach for the job, and I think that he's going to help walk Sam Houston. It's going to be a process, 3 or 4 years before Big Sam might be a playoff team again. But with all of the players that they've got coming back, 16 returning starters, and his infectious enthusiasm, I think Sam Houston could make it to number 7. Could battle for number 6 this year.
And I just got off of Twitter there while you were talking, and Jaden Shaw looks like he is at DeSoto. He's at least that's what X tells me, and you can't deny X. All right, let's move on to 4-6A, where we have South Lake up there at the top. They have a new coach in Lee Mund. He, as much as Riley Dodge is an offensive coach, Coach Mund is a defensive coach. So will there be a shift in where the power is on that team, or they? I mean, you just can't get away from the up. Plus, they got a whole bunch of sons of Cowboys, I believe, on the team, which is a tough break for me to have to see. But they're very talented. I'm not going to put the sins of their fathers for being Cowboys on them. They're going to be great players, and Des Bryant Jr. and Demarcus Ware's kid.
Yeah, I mean, you still got Blake Gunner and Brady Knowles coming back. So, I
Sure.
mean, wide receiver central is going to be over here. I believe it was your word, Ward, talking about wide receivers for days with
Yeah.
Colleyville Heritage, a couple other
Yep.
teams the last couple of years. And I think South Lake Carroll is going to do that. But and then unproven quarterback who's going to have to step in and feed all of these hungry receivers out there. But I feel like for the last 15 years, you look at Highland Park, you look at South Lake Carroll. I've not seen a year where the quarterback just didn't step in and all of a sudden within 6 games is getting D1 offers. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just what's happened, and it's because of the culture. I mean, you don't go be the starting quarterback at South Lake Carroll unless you have the pedigree, you have the intelligence, you have the arm strength to be a D1 quarterback. So you can just tell me whoever's going to be the quarterback. I believe they're going to slot just in there
Tom Check.
perfectly and
I
be
believe they
well.
call him Mr. Tom Check. But yeah, he's supposed to be
Mike
pretty
check,
good.
Tom check. What kind of checking we got going on over here,
He's
Ward?
going to be nice. But go
He's
ahead.
he's going to be just fine. And again, when you look at this model here, South Lake Carroll is 3 touchdowns better than everybody else in this district. So even if they've got some learning curves and Lee Munn has some bumps in the road and trying to figure this team out and figure out what it's like being the head coach, got 3 touchdowns to work with every game at least. So I feel like South Lake Carroll is pretty safe. But I would say their early schedule season, because they finally kind of scheduled up a little bit, we're going to get some heavyweight games. You might see them take their lumps, and I think that'll actually be helpful for Coach Munn to kind of take some early losses and kind of keep that team humbled, because this district is it's going to be a competitive district in the middle, but it's not going to prepare them for a state championship run. And I think of what happened with South Lake Carroll last year, and I mean they got up on DeSoto. It felt like DeSoto was there were 2 scores up on DeSoto for 3 quarters of that game, but DeSoto, it's like the Rocky movie, body blow, body blow, body blow, and South Lake Carroll finally withered down and did not make the plays in the fourth quarter. And I feel like that's a little bit of a cultural thing with South Lake Carroll, that they just came in and expected to win all of these games with all of that talent that they had last year. So I feel like a lot of players are going to have chips on their shoulders coming into this season, and then early losses could really help them kind of keep Coach Munn's messaging straight. Because we talk about with Denton Ryan, when Denton Ryan doesn't play anybody, I feel like they're going to take that low road to the 15th week of the year, 15th, 16th week, and then just get absolutely obliterated the first time they get hit in the face.
Right.
South Lake Carroll is going to get hit in the face early and then kind of get a chance to heal and get better. And I think that's going to be helpful for them. But man, Ward, you look at that graphic, 0 on the D, 0 returning
You're a
starters.
defensive player. That's where you're going to need Munn's eye for defense for sure.
And in South Lake Carroll in the past has won games via shootout quite a bit. So, I feel like that might be how they have to interact this year, because last year they had a pretty good defense. But what I think is going to be fun, again, is the next 4, and depending on how you want to view it, 5, 6, 7 teams here. Byron Nelson bringing back Coach Woodard. Glad they finally took that interim label off of him.
Yeah.
He's a great coach and brings back that culture and understands that. And I feel like Byron Nelson showed us last year that it wasn't just a couple of years. It just wasn't a couple of fluky players and a couple of special classes. They're here. They understand the culture, and they're going to continue to build. So I feel like at number 2, they're going to be here. We talked about Nolan Hawkins as a player to
Love
watch.
Noah Hawkins. Love
Yeah,
that kid.
just a phenomenal player, and feels like he can play both ways if needed. And just, how can he help this team? And I believe he will. Colin Janice, George Toya are a couple of other players to keep an eye on. But finally, Ward, I know you remember. I remember texting you this like in
Hmm.
April. I was like, Ward, what do you
Felt
think
like it
about my?
was February. Felt like February to me. That's how early you jumped on this joint.
I was like, Ward, what do you think of this top 25? This is my preseason top 25. And what was the one school you were like, Diggs? I
I
don't
was
know
like,
about this one.
Diggs, you put Central on the back end of Keller. I think you might have made a mistake here. And you were like, I did not make a mistake. And I was like, you can't talk to me like that. And you continue to talk to me like that.
I did, and you're like, you just called me an idiot, and it's just like
I did
telling
call you
me
names.
about, telling me about Ariana Robinson was going to transfer, and she did, and this was just going to be another one of these kind of situations where Ward was right, and the wisdom was going to take over. But man, they made believers out of the state in 7-on-7. I remember, I think that when they qualified, I think you even told me that a prominent media member, you can say his name, I won't, pretty much wrote them off against Tuttle, or that like they're not going to win this game, and they won, and they just kept on winning when 7-on-7 kept happening. Isaiah Taylor, Jeremiah Taylor, Braden Nichols on the defensive side of the ball. And people are going to say this, and it's very true. Keller Central has never made it to the playoffs. They've
Hmm.
barely had a winning season. So the culture has a lot to be said to that. But Isaiah Taylor and Jeremiah Taylor are just them.
I
We
mean,
talk about him, they're them. You
those
know,
two are the keys, man. I sat down with Eric Vance during the coaching school, and we talked about is it to have guys that stick around and be stalemates here and kind of bring up the culture for you is cute. He's like, you realize that we have had great players in the past. They just don't stay here. Keldon Ryan obviously was the quarterback for DeSoto's championship team a couple years ago, or was it last year? I can't remember. It was last year, right? And then he was a Keller Central star, and he left to all Saints and somewhere else. They just don't stay, and he's gotten there. And he's in to see the Taylor twins stick around at Keller Central, say, hey, and if he can show them this week that or this year they can be successful by staying here, that may actually change and flip things and make Central a team that can be in the postseason every year.
absolutely. And I feel like, because of this, I know Keller's looking at this like, hey, we've been beating up on Keller Central for years now. Timber Creek, similar, but Keller Central, you could even see in their scores as the season went on, they got better. They got better in the way they're playing Byron Nelson, the way they got a couple of big wins. I think they knocked LD Bell out of the playoffs last
Mm.
year, if my memory was correct. So Keller Central got some key wins last year, and I think that they're going to be slotted in at the number 3 spot. And then I think it's going to be Eaton and Keller for the 4th playoff spot. Northwest Eaton just returned so much from last year, and so much. They had so many games where like LD Bell walked them off on a field goal. Like that 2-7 could have easily been 5-5, 6-4, and they have all the returning players that they've got coming back. So I'm going to slot them in at number 4. And our guy James, sorry Keller, I not going to have the blue lights on the water tower this year. I've got Keller just missing the playoffs, and I wanted to say something to Coach Wiley, and I'm going to just run my mouth on the podcast where it's nice and safe, where Coach Wiley can't sit
It's
here
a safe
and show me
place.
his biceps. But why are you playing Timber Creek?
He'll
Come on,
knock you
Coach
out.
Wiley.
He'll get you with one of them big hands of his, put you down. You're
But
going from
Northwest and Boswell are gonna struggle in this district. Yeah, I don't see them being very competitive. They do got Carousel coming back. He was kind of our go-to if they're playing a favorable team for a 300-yard offensive performance. So I think, how much can they run him? I mean, he ran for 1,700 yards last year. They got Mark Hartman coming back with 1,400 yards passing, and then Boswell. They're just looking at this district like, oh, we're not good there. We're not good here. A lot of EMS ISD realignment. They got to figure things out at Boswell. I know you were a little bit high on them last year with some younger talent. It
that
just
was in
didn't.
yeah, that was in a different district, but I may not be as juiced up about him here at 6A up in this one. All right. You want to move to 5A? Let's move to 5A, 6A because we start at the top and go to the bottom, but I ain't doing that this time. I want to start right smack in the middle because we talked about 5, 6A in the off season, and Marcus was a playoff team. Now we're in the podcast, and all of a sudden, Braswell's. What has happened with Braswell, or what have you done in your research that makes you feel like they're the 4th playoff team and not Marcus?
I mean, first of all, I'm looking at coaching here, and every time I talk to somebody from Flower Mound Marcus, I'm hearing grumbling about the culture, the community, and this that. It's just always seeming to be some sort of discontent. I don't know if it's anything to do with Coach Alexander himself, but I just don't hear positive vibes coming out. Nussmeyer didn't want to be there. Just a lot of discontent. I'm hearing the opposite. We heard that a couple of years ago at Braswell. Now everybody wants to play for Braswell. Everybody's talking about there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of athleticism, and I mean they got a lot of good
Not
players
returning.
coming back. You
Yeah.
got 16 starters, and at the end of the year they were playing a lot more competitive football than they were kind of like with Little Elm. Was competing a lot better at the end of the year. I think Little Elm had like 3 or 4 one-score losses to playoff teams at the end of the year. So I feel like Little Elm has an opportunity to take a step forward. You got Wakeland, who's sitting there feeling disrespected because they're a 2-3 round playoff team every year in 5A Division One. They're dropping to 6A, and nobody's giving them any respect. So I feel like in the middle of this district, Marcus is just going to have a lot more hungry people who are fighting for them. So I did take them a step back, and I did push Braswell a little bit ahead. The model has it within, I'm just looking at it, 0.3, 0.4 points. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that's how little the model views the difference between these teams right now. So Braswell and Marcus are kind of, so to me, it's Coach Laster. It's the excitement going on over there, which has led them up. But I still think there's a pretty big gap between 4, 5, 6, and 7, and maybe even 8 if your guy Baron Sampson can take Flower Mound and get him back up in the conversation to the top 3, because the top 3 look like they're pretty solid.
Yeah, they are pretty dominant. It's funny, kind of funny. It's week 1, but I already know when it comes to week 12, I'm going to shoot Louisville in the first round of playoffs. I just don't know who they're going to play yet. Are they going to play Allen, Prosper, whoever the heck they're going to play? I always know that's going to probably be the banger first round game because Denton Ryan Geyer always goes Division Two, and they'll get pretty much the 4th place team in the next district. That's going to be a win. But this, at one point, I thought this was Geyer's to lose. It still is, but that point differential is now like 4 points.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more than 4 points. Honestly, I still think Geyer with that defensive line and what they've got coming back, and now we don't have. I feel like you got a little bit of addition by subtraction going on because now you're not trying to figure out how to get Zephyr in there with Carter. It's just Carter's show. We're giving Carter the keys and saying you run with it offensively, and I think that gives Zephyr the opportunity to go to Anna and shine there. So truly a win-win situation. You're not dealing with Pat Forms over there, but he's just excited to kind of go their own ways. But man, you're looking at that defensive line, and you were talking about Zane Rowe last year, and I can't even imagine him at tight end if they kind of shift him over there at times. But Kyron Haywood, this is like the best defensive line in the state of Texas, bar none. It kind of sounds like Duncanville's D line a couple of years ago. There's going to be people running for their lives with this defensive line. You can't just kind of, okay, well, we're going to chip this guy or double team this guy. It's going to be every play is going to be just a jailbreak with Denton Geyer's defensive line, and they look really good. So I feel like there's the way the matchups go. I feel like they're going to just be better. Since I taped the podcast, I found out that Louisville got a quarterback transfer. Maybe that's why we kind of see the dominoes falling from Oklahoma. He's he's very highly thought of. I haven't seen him in person yet, but I think Ward, I might go check out the Star next
I
Saturday
think I might too.
when the season starts, and we'll go give you a little bit more of an in-depth preview of the new Louisville quarterback because I don't. I remember I gave Jerry Meyer heck a couple of years ago because when you're doing well in other states, it doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
translate over to Texas perfectly. And Jerry Meyer, like threw for 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns as a freshman, hasn't quite gotten those numbers. He's been
I
good,
know.
he's still been good. So I don't necessarily believe that just playing in Oklahoma is going to get you ready unless you're Bixby or
Yeah,
something.
that
And
sounds like Cole Weller. Remember him? He had the big numbers up in the Pacific Northwest and came to Marcus and he shared the quarterback position. He was a starter over at Liberty Christian. I guess he wound up at Connecticut, but the way they were talking about him made it sound like he was the next coming of Joe Montana.
and just didn't quite get there.
No.
But DJ Martin coming back had some really good. He's a dual threat player at Louisville. Deuce Mathis. The thing I keep mentioning about Louisville, it's like for years they had the bellwether running back. We're going to put that, and we also had a D1 offensive line with 3 or 4 D1
Mhm.
players. I don't see that for Louisville this year. I see a good offensive line. I see a good 6A offensive line, but compared to the other years, I feel like it's going to be their skill players having to lead this thing. And Coach Odell's got to find a way to get past the first round eventually because there's a lot of discontent in the community over there about these one and done games. And being close to Allen is not, what's getting the community excited about this
Yeah.
program. And then Hebron, they lost a quarterback, not the starting quarterback, but they lost some of their depth over to Frisco Emerson, I believe it was. But Brady Brock is coming back. He had 2,500 yards. You got Dylan Collins, Preston Creighton. I know you don't like talking about these Cowboys kids, but they exist in other places other than just South Lake Carroll. But he had 3 INTs last year, 19 solo tackles. So there's a lot to like about Hebron. So I still got them in the playoffs. But man, Wakeland, I
Mhm.
love telling the story about we hurt people, and I got some DMs about that. Like, what were you talking about with that? Well, you got Miles Lashley on this team, and I know I feel like they feel a little bit disrespected right now. And one thing you do not do is disrespect the Lashley kid
No.
at this. And they got Austin Kahuch at quarterback coming back. Braxton Cole had 1,200 yards. He's going to be back there. So there's a lot of offensive production. But this district is a district you have to have a lot of depth in. And I
Yeah.
just don't see it for Wakeland and Marcus, which is why I feel like my top 4 are now my top 4. And I hope I'm wrong about Marcus because I never like to see a cultural shift. If the players aren't there, the players aren't there. It happens. We
Right.
talk about the Jimmys and Joes, and sometimes when you're playing Duncanville and DeSoto, their players are going to be better than your players, and it's just the way it is. But with Marcus, it's just the noise I'm hearing around that community where there's just a lot of anger and like, why is this happening and why is this not happening?
It's almost like a fed up thing. I'm fed
Yeah,
up
they're
with
just
this.
fed up with that, and that's not good, and that kind of gets down to the kids. And if the kids are questioning, the coaching staff, you got to be all in,
Yeah.
and that's where successful programs are. And I hope I'm wrong about that. That's just what the water cooler says. I haven't talked to anybody specifically about that, but I'm a little bit nervous about Marcus. It seems like where there's smoke, there's a little bit of fire
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'm a wait to pass judgment on Wakeland until after week one, where we'll have Neil Beasley there. They're taking on Richland at home. Now that they're a 6A team, if they can beat Richland by a couple scores, maybe even three scores, it might tell me, okay, maybe they are pissed off enough to compete in 5-6A and go for one of those playoff spots. But they got to show me something already in week one. I'm not even giving them any leeway. Give me something in week one because that's a quality 5A team.
Or is
Come
Jay
in,
Sean Gibson going to go 400 on them?
yes, if that
Think about
happens,
that for your fantasy.
is that what you're doing? Tell me all right now. I need to know. What are you going to do?
I haven't even looked at the
All right,
schedule yet.
all right.
I
Go
know where
figure.
I'm going on Thursday. Plano East
And
and
Saturday,
Mesquite Horn, and Saturday.
because there's only one game going on. All right, 6-6A. Let's take a look at it. I don't see any Plano teams on here. They must have moved somewhere else. Oh, yeah, that's right. 7-6A. But I do see Jesuit in there. And Jesuit's right there at the 4 spot. But this district looks like it's Allen. And you got Allen by like 3 touchdowns, according to the AI model over there, over the second place team of Prosper. Talk to me about this district because Walnut Grove moves up into it as well.
Yeah, Walnut Grove is very highly thought of by the model right now, and I still got some questions about that, especially after they lost Haynes Hackney and trying to replace Cam Newton. There's still a lot of unknown players, but it feels like a lot of the Prosper ISD growth is in this area, and I feel like it's going to be next man up, kind of like with Prosper and Rock Hill. I get to see them in week 2 against Plano East, so I'll get a chance to observe them with my own eyes. But I feel like some of the big stories are in this district. First of all, I think Jesuit is going to be very competitive in this district, and I've got them making the playoffs. Last year, they got better as the season went on, and I felt like now they're coming back, and they got their quarterback coming back. They got some really good, talented players, and Cade Kirby, some really good offensive linemen. So Coach Hickman, I think he's going to do some really good things with this squad. But they may have to move to SMU for that Allen game if it's their home game because
True.
can't fit that band in that stadium. Prosper Walnut Grove coach Moore over there just continues year in and year out. Tyler continues to do a great job at Prosper. I mean, who's going to be stepping in at running back? Who's going to be stepping in at quarterback? Hudson Bowman is a name I'm keeping an eye on. Tyler Albert, it might be next man up at quarterback, but the offensive line is for the first time. I'm not seeing 61 offensive linemen, maybe only 2 or 3. So how is that going to be with some depth issues? I got some questions on that. McKinney was very young last year. You can see how much they're returning. McKinney Boyd was young. I think Princeton is going back to being Princeton. I feel like we gave them their flowers last year, Ward, because of Marcus, but I think they're going to be back kind of where they've been in the past. But that area is growing. I don't know if you've made the trek over on 380 anytime recently, but that area, man, it's like driving through Prosper and Frisco now, with
Okay.
just subdivision and subdivision popping up over there. Princeton's opening a second high school much sooner than later. Community in that area is also growing, so quite a bit of fringe growth over on the eastern Collin County side. But Allen Ward, I think that
Listen,
might be where I end up on Friday. I mean, don't I got to go see Allen Duncanville if they're putting that in
I
my
think so.
backyard?
I think you do. I think you do. I mean, this is you look at Region One, and obviously we'll go into the AI bracketology in a little bit. But Allen in Region One, Division One, it seems like if they don't make it to the regional final or even the state semifinal, there'll be a letdown to the whole community. I mean, this looks like it's shaped up nice for them.
And it does because you got North Crowley out of there, and Coppell could still even go D2, and that would be another obstacle out of their way. South Lake Carroll is
Yeah.
got nobody coming back on defense.
Toledo's D2, and they're not even, they're just jumping into 6A.
Denton Geyer's D2, so it really has opened up very well for them. I don't see anybody in 7 or 8 outside of Coppell that is going to be overly competitive. But man, it feels like it's going to be the Ty Snell story. Can he lead them? Can he kind of get into that Kyler Murray side and be a sophomore and come in here and be inevitable and unbeatable? Or is he going to be, 2 or 3 interceptions and sophomore mistakes? I don't know. But last year as a freshman and just kind of spot duty, he had over 1,000 yards. And I mean, he was playing meaningful minutes at times in meaningful packages against really good teams. So I think then you got Lyndon Spriggs and the depth with Allen. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
about a school with 6,000 students. They got depth. D1 or from first string to second string and third string, they're two deep, they're three deep, are all quality starters that could play for just about anybody. So, when we talk about the next district, depth is going to be a storyline we talk about. With Allen, that's not the case. It felt like when Wigginton got there, we were worried about that. But one thing he has done was stabilize that program,
Yeah.
stabilize the numbers, and Allen looks like they're back to being Allen.
The dude is an incredible coach, by the way. Coach Wigginson's one of our favorites. Little tidbit I learned over the summers that Ty Snell's cousin is Jaquan Snell, who we'll talk about from Waxahachie. And boy, if those two ever got to play on the same team, that'd be something dangerous, offense and defense. All right, let's move on to 7-6A, one that you're very familiar with. It's the Planos and the Richardson ISD schools, and they tossed Capel in there, and Capel is pretty happy about that. They feel like the model says 33 points better. That's 7 touchdowns better than Team 2. This is another one that you've kind of changed, I believe, over the past couple of months because you used to have Lake Highlands as the second team in this district. You've got Plano in there now. The computer says that Plano should be 6. You have fallen in love with Plano. A Plano East fan, is it because of what we broke bread with them a couple of weeks ago? You broke bread with the Planos, and all of a sudden – the Wildcats are your second favorite team in this district.
To me, it's about what happened last year, especially when you're looking at what they've got coming back. And the thing that I keep anchoring to was we saw some games when Plano ISD played Richardson ISD. We saw Plano West beat Pierce, and we saw Plano beat Richardson, and we saw Richardson beat Lake Highlands, and we saw Lake Highlands beat Berkner, and we saw Berkner beat Richardson. So I look at that, and I look at what everything Plano's got coming back. They've already done it, Ward. They already beat Plano last year. Right. I don't understand what this fascination is with Richardson ISD because they got better because they got to stay healthy. They got to stay those 3 bye weeks against Irving schools, whereas Plano and Plano East was having to take their lumps against Allen and Prosper every week. To me, that's why I got Plano number 2. It has nothing to do necessarily with love of Plano or this, that, or the other. It's the fact that they've already been playing Richardson the last couple of years. They're 2-0 against them. Like, they're not going to look at Richardson and go, well, that's a scary team we got to keep an eye on. They're going to respect them, of course, because that's what their culture does. But their JVs all won. I mean, it's been a clean sweep the last 2 seasons against Richardson, and Richardson has been walking up the Richardson ISD squad. Plano's already better than them. So I look at that, and I feel like Plano has earned that number 2 spot because when you look at these teams, when they played each other, only one team has been beating playoff teams last year already, and that's Plano. And then you can look at Plano West going, well, we beat Plano and Plano East last year. So what about that? And we beat Richardson Pierce last year. So for me, Plano West, I just got to, losing Jordan Grant is to me the problem. So I want to see how they bounce back. Richardson losing as much as they did. Berkner is the team I feel like I'm most likely to be wrong about. And if you look at the model agrees. The model thinks that Berkner should probably be number 2 with 10 players on the defensive side of the ball. But like I told Coach Bryant, I mean, I feel like they're going to have the opposite problem that they had in the last couple of seasons because they have a really good chance of starting 0-5. And it's like, how do you bounce back from that if you start 0-5 with that schedule, playing Coppell and I think
Lake Highlands 4-5, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really tough start before the bye week for them. And that's where players can go like, okay, you get hurt. The depth is an issue because across the board from 2 to 8, it's like every team's got 5-6 D1 players on their team, but the second line players are not great. They would not be, they'd be like 5th team at Allen. They'd be 3rd team at Prosper, but they might have to play meaningful minutes. I heard a Richardson fan say they looked at their team photo this year, and it's like you got Jasper and you got Cole and you got a couple of these big kids, but then you got some 5'8", 150-pound kids not too far from them. And that's kind of what this district is in a nutshell when you got Coppell, is that who is going to stay healthy, what's going to be the depth, and it's going to be week in and week out, one turnover, one possession, and one scheme that you might see on the film that, okay, if we get a fake field goal here, that might be enough to turn over. Coppell, 5 touchdowns better than everybody else. And luckily, if you'd like a 1 hour or 90-minute deep dive onto this, Ward, tell them where they can go to hear about this.
They can get on our social media talking about our special 7-6A Digging for Wisdom, which was at Saltcrest, which now after all the ripping you're doing on Richardson ISD, I think if we do it again, it'll be at Waffle House or Luby's. You done take us away from the steak because of all this stuff. I love the steak. Now we're going to Golden Corral. Probably have to do it over at the buffet bar.
There's
This
nothing
is
wrong with some
unbelievable.
Waffle House. Bring me a nice waffle, scattered, smothered, covered. I'll take it, Ward.
Brother. Yeah, you have nothing to say. Go to say something about Plano East. You know you want to.
I mean, I'm excited about Plano East because I look at what they've got coming back, and I see so many D1 players, and I'm excited about. I mean, you can talk about Javon Rogers. I mean, his pedigree speaks for itself. But it's the Josh Gordons, it's the Cody Warners, it's the Trace Seldons, that are all coming back. That I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, if they can stay healthy, I see a lot of benefits there. I'm seeing the highlights of Trey Selden as a sophomore right now, just what he's doing in practice. It's going to be absolutely incredible. But again, with Plano East, it's depth. The depth falls off really. Everybody has that problem in this district, which I think gives them a fair playing ground. Because last year they were playing quarterback with their third string at times, and they were basically running triple option, just doing whatever they could to be competitive in the games. I believe in the culture, but you know what? You got 6 or 7 teams, and we talked about it at Saltgrass that all believe in their teams and all
Hmm.
have a chance. Nobody in this district is quietly or publicly saying they can't make the playoffs, and I agree. I've seen narratives. I've seen Plano East in some picks at 8. I've seen Plano East in some picks at 4. I've seen them 5. Everybody, depending on who is picking it, you could see any of these teams in the playoffs, and I agree with that because there's such parity in this district. It's going to be really fun. 7 teams, 3 playoff spots. Every game is going to be a battle.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's go to District 8, 6A, which is one that we haven't really talked about all summer. It is the HEB schools. We're also going to bring it in South Grand Prairie and the Irving ISD schools, or the Grand Prairie schools in Irving ISD. Seems like SGP and Trinity will probably be battling out for that top spot. I'll have to figure out when that game is and make sure we circle it. But what do you think about the strength of this district? Because I cheated and looked ahead at your bracketology, and I did see Halton going a couple rounds deep. Talk to me about this district and your thoughts on it.
Well, the bracketology is the bracketology. It's what the computer model says. I don't necessarily agree
Gotcha.
with everything about it, but I'm excited about LD Bell. I think they have a chance to play meaningful November football. I think Irving MacArthur has a really good chance to make the playoffs for the first time. Haltom, they've been in that Arlington ISD district and they've been faring well, but then they play a Richardson and get knocked out of the playoffs really quickly. Nimitz is returning everybody. I think Nimitz could get a couple of wins. I'm going to get a chance to see South Grand Prairie. They play Plano East in week 3, and we might see again in week 12. You never know how that happens. We'll have to see what bracketology thinks about it. But Trinity, I feel like has a lot. You talked about it being the end of an era, and I feel like it's a lot of emotional turmoil going there. And I feel like culturally speaking, with the John Meredith transfer out and kind of the stories that have been unleashed about that, I wonder what is happening behind the scenes over there, because it seems like there could be some discontent over there. We talked about smoke and fire over at Marcus. Trinity, are they going to be able to bounce back because they're not returning everybody? They're only returning 9 starters from a team that went one and done last year, and we're upset. If I remember right, I think Lake Ridge beat them in the first round, and
Yes,
that was
they
kind of
did.
an unexpected thing for them. So there's a lot of disappointment right now for Trinity, and I feel like because that culture in that area has such a high expectations for them. These one and done seasons aren't going to fit very well in that community right there. So I feel like Trinity has got to make a statement this year. Otherwise, we could see Trinity taking multiple steps back just because of a lot of discontent. I think LD Bell can take a step forward. Haltom, I feel like if it's a 50-50 right now. I'm going to give Haltom the benefit of the doubt. They've won those games. We don't got Fudrico this year, and I know that's going to be a struggle. But they got Christopher Parks coming back. He was Fudrico's his Robin to the Batman last year, so they've got some stars coming back. A lot of competitiveness, but can they win first round playoff games? We'll find out. But for all of these teams, there is a lot of optimism because this alignment really gives hope, I think, for 2 playoff spots. You could see Nimitz, MacArthur, Haltom, LD Bell all competing for that last playoff spot. And if Grand Prairie even has a young class coming up, you could see Grand Prairie getting into the mix for that a 4th playoff spot.
Yeah, I almost want to. Do you think it's time for Trinity to shuffle it up a little bit and maybe change the offensive mindset? Everybody knows it's run on first and second down. Is it time, or is that just a culture that I'm not going to mess with it because we got these big Tongan linemen and we at some point somebody's going to break off a 15-yard run, so we're going to stick with this plan, or should they mix it up some? Do you think?
That's a tough question because they know their personnel the best. They
Yeah,
understand year in and year out. I mean, we've seen them do a little bit more passing the last couple of years, but the offensive line hasn't even been as dominant over the past couple of years because you're starting to see the offensive line clinics and a lot more specialization, and you're getting into these NIL deals, and you could see yourself being an instant millionaire when you're going into college from just being a top lineman. So you're seeing a lot more specialization, a lot more coaching at a younger age for these big kids, and Trinity is just kind of losing that edge that they've had over the last couple of years. They're still big, they're still strong, but the run blocking isn't always as specialized as it's been in the
mm,
past. So I feel like they might have to shake it up a little bit. And not only that, but addressing the fact that they got to be competitive now regionally with the Prospers and Allens and Duncanvilles because the offensive lines are getting better across the board because there's a real world where you're a millionaire at 19 if you get
yeah,
into the right NIL deal.
yeah. And I definitely like what Coach DeLay's doing over there at SGP too, winning that district the year before, and now they're back and they're looking as a favorite here. All right, it's fun time, bro. Oh wait, you had something to say
Oh,
about
I was just
SGP?
gonna mention the Goss, Ryan Goss coming back,
Yeah.
and Cash Clark are a couple of names to keep an eye on for South Grand Prairie.
All right, well, this is the fun time. This is where AI takes us to our way too early playoff bracketology. Professor Lenardi over there, we'll call him Professor Diggs actually, but Joe Lenardi type bracketology way too early, but we're looking at it anyway. This is what they came up with for 6A Division One, maybe Region One. Take a look at some of this stuff, Diggs.
Yeah, look at that first round. I mean, Coppell and Trinity, if Coppell ends up being D1. So again, we're talking about Trinity getting a very bad draw. So that South Grand Prairie game against Euless Trinity, look at the difference in the bracket there. You got Coppell or a Plano East or maybe a Plano or maybe a Plano West or a Lake Highlands. So it's definitely a better draw to be on the left side of the bracket than the right side of the bracket. Then you got Lamar and Eaton as a pick 'em. And look at again, you talked about how you can just kind of block off knowing that Louisville is going to have a banger of a first round game.
Mm,
Louisville and
on point.
Prosper is how
Yeah,
bracketology draws that up, and it finally gets them past the first round. But then they just get Coppell in the second round. It's like
you
a
can't win
revisit
to
of
win it.
last year. You just cannot get past that. Otherwise, over there on the Plano East side of the bracket, you got Allen kind of looking at you in the second round, and then depending on the other side, you got Lamar going potentially 3 rounds because
Right.
they're in that 1, 2, 3, 4, the top half of the bracket where you're playing West Texas teams and you can go a lot further. So our Arlington Lamar is kind of thought of potentially as getting to the third round. And again, the regional finals here, Coppell Allen is kind of what a lot of people have thought. But again, going back to 7-6A, remember, Coppell is not a guaranteed D1 team. Allen obviously
Right.
is. They're the biggest school in the state. But you get Plano East and Plano West in there, and then Coppell's going D2. So I think Byron Nelson, Arlington Martin could be a fun first round game.
Mm,
Even Hebron doesn't even get a good draw there. Allen Hebron in round one, not a great draw for them either.
right. Exactly. I would actually love to see that Capel Allen game if Capel's rolling. Like if they're
Right.
you already mentioned they're you didn't like one of their non-district games, but if they're rolling and if they show us something when they play Waxahachie, which is a game that was cut short last year, they get themselves rolling against Allen. That I mean, it says a 13-point spread here, but I think that thing could be a lot closer, a lot funner if that happens. All right, let's take a look at the Division Two side of the draw, where we have. I would be interested if Keller Central is what we think it's going to be. That Alito Keller Central game. That it just. I think Alito will win it. Yes, and what has it got there? 26 points. I don't know if it'd be 26 points, but I would like to see that one. And you finish off with Geyer against Carroll if this thing plays out, which they seem to play every year in the playoffs, but maybe not this far in the postseason.
Yeah, and when I'm looking at this bracketology, I'm looking at just new matchups because of the way the bracket goes
Mm,
on. Plano versus Haltom, I don't think we've ever seen that game. The model likes Haltom in that game. I would personally pick Plano. They don't. I mean, Plano beat Richardson last year, and then Richardson beat Haltom. So the model is the model. The model will correct itself. Give it a couple of weeks. But you talked about Alito Keller Central as a fascinating game. I think Jesuit, could give Geyer because Jesuit
Sure.
strength. I've called them, I think they've one of the best offensive lines in the area. So could that offensive line be enough to slow down that defensive, those edge rushers for Geyer and maybe expose them a little bit early, even though Geyer would be a big favorite in that game? And then you can look at Alito. They've got a 3 round run that's pretty easy if they can get past that first game. But then they have to go to Geyer. We've been seeing Alito Geyer. It feels like that's been a
Yeah.
game that has been happening for the last 15 years. I remember the last time that Alito had, kind of a where they were getting out in the second round, it was Denton Geyer that was, giving them the business and taking them out. And then at the bottom half of the bracket, if a Walnut Grove Braswell, I mean, that's a game that seems like it's never happened before.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Exactly.
Walnut Grove is a new school, but new matchups, LD Bell, Lake Highlands, that's a winnable game for an LD Bell or for Lake Highlands. And then Walnut Grove and Lake Highlands, though any of those four teams
Yeah.
make it,
Those are
looks
fun
like you could
games.
see a 3 round, a team that hasn't made it to the third round making it to the third round. So Carroll is the favorite right now to get out of this region, but I think Geyer on paper looks like they could really have a good chance to make it to the state
Because they
semifinals.
got the two studs there on the defensive side of the defensive line. People are begging to have people in the trenches. Well, they got two guys there that are D1, Power Five guys that could cause havoc. So
Yeah.
should be interesting. All right, let's get to Region Two. Start with 9-6A, another district we haven't talked a lot about during the off season, but not much has changed except for Newman's name and Forest getting kicked off to 5A. Uh, your thoughts on this one? Because again, it's in the past it's been Wiley East first, Saxon second, Wiley up there too in the top three. It looks like it's pretty much the same.
Well, if you look at the model, and I've seen some Instagram comments
Hmm.
about this. The model had Rowlett number one. And you look at how much they've got coming back, 9 defensively. And if you remember that Rowlett Wiley East game, they should have beat Wiley East last year.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was a game they had an absolute last 3 minute meltdown of that game, and they got a lot of players with a chip on their shoulder after that game, looking like, okay, us get better, find a way to get better. But Wiley East, it feels like they just consistently, Coach Gold has done a great job over there, but Wiley, I feel like they've got the best player in the district. I mean, they got Dalen Gordon coming back. They got JB Blake coming back. I feel like they've got enough coming back to where they're going to get better. I've heard that they got a really good move in. I don't know much about it, but I saw Pappy on his podcast highlighting that Wiley's got their best move in ever. Don't know what that means, but that's big.
If he's
Praise.
related to Nikita Whitlock, then I'm all in on Wiley to win the district.
Absolutely. So I think it's still going to come down to Wiley and Wiley East. I know a game that is going to be kind of an early season bellwether game for two teams. Saxe and Plano play in non-district, so I think that'll give us good information about both teams. Lakeview Centennial lost King Thibodeau. I think that's a big loss for them. Garland graduated heavy, and I remember it was just last year where you were lamenting, hearing about the coach lament about all the players
Yeah.
that they lost, but they were still competitive last year. But they got hit heavy by graduation. I think the top four are going to be the top four, but I wouldn't surprise to see it go Rowlett number one, and maybe Wiley East finally dropping down a couple of spots. I could see Wiley East felt like they got lucky last year. North Garland should have beat them, I feel like, at one point last year. So
Yeah.
is Wiley East done? Maybe they're taking a step back this year, but the model is obviously still bullish on them this year, even though that they lost a lot of starters. So
You're
none of
Rick
these
Flairing
teams,
them.
yeah,
You're
none of
Rick
these
Flairing them
teams.
in that top spot.
I am Rick Flaring them, but none of these teams made it to my top 25. So you can kind of see that
That is
it's
true.
going to be very mediocre in this district. But with that comes opportunity. North Garland didn't report their starters. They had a lot of young kids, so I'm hoping to see improvement out of North Garland. I think South Garland's still going to be a struggle, but I could see North Garland even taking a couple of steps up this year.
Show me in sign language how many wins they're going to get in the playoffs. You think this year? I can figure that out. I don't even read sign language that well because they're taking on the tough district of 10-6A, which added an eighth team, so they don't have to search for that fourth non-district game. They added Mesquite Horn. This 1 through 6 in this district is crazy, and very well could see any of those four of those six teams make it.
Forney, we're going to find out what Coach Fleener has with his culture because they graduated so much offensive production. Javian Osborne, Nelson Peterson, gone. Really good players, gone. Only returning 4 starters. So, what can Forney do in this district? Because look at how much everybody else has got coming back. North Forney rotated so much last year. They were able to get a lot of talent playing the game. But I remember they took halves off, and maybe losing Legend Bay because he was such a polarizing player because he was so good. I mean, he's just so naturally talented. They could have a situation where you have subtract addition by subtraction. I feel like Denton Ryan had that a couple of years ago, where some really good players left, and that was able to actually help the culture. I don't know. I mean, I felt like something was off with North Forney last year because at times they took halves off, and it was just very inconsistent. I feel like they're only up against Mesquite like 7-0 at halftime, and then it ended up being like 49-7. So Shavers has got to be messaging, we got to play 48 minutes. We got to be strong. And he does. I mean, he's an incredible coach. And I think another year of that messaging will help out Longview. I mean, you got Coach King, who is
Back.
back, got the clear bill of health. I know you don't like talking about him. I know you don't
No,
like
no,
sending
no.
cameras
I can
out there.
talk about Coach King. I just don't. You don't expect me to throw a camera out that route because it's too far, guys. It's gas. You got the gas up at 380.
It's hard, but take my truck out there. It gets 600 miles to
Oh
the
my
gallon.
man,
We'll take, or not to the gallon, but to the tank. So you can
I was
take it
going to
out
say
there.
that's a heck
You
of a
can
truck.
you can get back. I don't got the Cybertruck. That'd probably be able to do something like that. But again, the players you got to keep an eye on. Jaden Herndon. I mean, just an all everything wide receiver. He was a super sophomore last year. Had over 1,000 yards receiving. You got Johnny Hamilton, who had 2,400 yards passing. In this offense, I mean, I feel like Lobo might see air raid football. And that's kind of what we were talking about with Trinity a little bit earlier, that Coach King will change it up based on whatever personnel he's got. If they got to run
Exactly.
the ball, they'll run the ball 50 times. If they got to pass the ball, they'll pass the ball. And I love that about Coach King. He has no pride. He has no commitment to an offensive philosophy. What works best for the kids, what works best for the team, and you see that every year. And I feel like that's why Longview has got to be that number one team. It was just a couple of years ago, Ward, when I was getting faded because I said Longview might not make the playoffs.
Yeah,
And,
they
you
didn't
know,
like that.
they didn't like that at all. And so I got them number one. I apologize. But again, I remember, Ward, you did that story on Roy City last year and those
Mm,
super softs. I feel like this has got to be the year. Coach Colvin's got to
coming.
bring it home for me.
They're coming, but they also have Rockwall, who's hungry for a postseason. That's going to be the interesting dynamic. If Fleener can't get Forney with their youth to get in the postseason, those two are going to be battling each other because Rockwall can't take another year not being in the postseason. I think somebody over there is going to revolt. The fans are going to do something to Wilkerson Sanders Stadium, light a match under it or something. And now Roy City's got these young bucks that we can't even call them young bucks no more because they're back again. They're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, you got Collins Jones, who was the quarterback over at Rockwall Heath, who's now the quarterback over at Rockwall, because Prosper Neal, kind of like we talked about with Denton Geyer, the two headed quarterback situation, they're giving Prosper Neal the keys and said, okay, do your thing. He was absolutely incredible last year. He had 2,000 yards. But I know the Rockwall people are very happy about Collins Jones, and they got Ryan Wiley over there, who's, I think, committed to Texas or something. I mean, we're talking people are not necessarily making JSN talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba
Right.
comparisons with Ryan Wiley, but he's going to be one of the Rockwall receivers that continues to do well over there. And Coach Brooks has got to be feeling that pressure. We talked about Fleener feeling the pressure, and you got Mesquite Horn, who the model actually has over 40 because they're returning everybody, but they lost their coach as well. So there's a lot there, and Tyler Legacy is returning a lot offensively, but in this district, it is just a tough go. So I feel like six deep, I've got six teams ranked in my top 25 that would make the playoffs. All six of those teams would win District 9 6A.
And all six of them are probably ranked ahead of everybody in nine, six
Yep.
A, like you said, which means that's why this zero came out when he said that. Roy City's starting their season off at home against Lone Star. A home game against Lone Star. I'm not expecting them to win. Lone Star's now got a USC quarterback there, but man, if they put a good showing in there on their home stadium, they can get this crowd riled up. Didn't mention Carter Zam up there at Heath, but I love that bullish running back. So one little 1-2 punch there with him and Prosper Neal.
I mean, there's so many players we could be talking about. Carson Adams over there for Heath as well. And again, they got the new quarterback over there, Casey Dick. Remember,
Mhm.
Casey and Nathan led
Good
part of
coach.
the. Yeah, now he's a coach, and
Yep.
he led Allen to state championship. And now he's got that Texas high school football, and he understands how to win. So it's going to be new. Coach Webb was an absolute legend. I hope he's enjoying fishing. Coach Webb's the kind of person you could put on your speed dial if we need a Friday night fill in.
Oh,
He'll
absolutely.
he'll come hang out with us.
You'll know exactly what to say. All right, the big dog district, 11-6A. We got three teams at the top that could legitimately win a state title. We just don't know which one it'll be. We do know the top two will go Division One if it happens like that, and North Crowley go Division Two. Who's the fourth team right now? You got Lake Ridge in there. The model says it's Crowley. I feel like Lake Ridge is a couple of steps above it. Actually, the model says it's Lake Ridge, but
Yeah.
Crowley should be fifth. But like it says in the model, it's like two touchdowns better than 5, 6, 7, 8, and I think that's fairly accurate.
Yeah, and I mean, Lake Ridge would be a team. Again, we put them in 9-6A. We'd be talking about how they could be running away with that district because they got Jaden Cotton coming back. They got Deshaun Edwards. They got
Yeah,
Jaden Evans and Micah B. And they got so many off. I think one of the players sent me an Instagram post where they have like 7,000 returning yards of some variant coming back
that
next year.
sounds very Richlandish. Remember that
Yeah,
from last year?
I mean, just absolutely incredible numbers. But again, we're talking about three elite state
Mm.
ranked programs that we're talking about. That's just no disrespect. That's just Duncanville, Waxahachie, and North Crowley. I mean, sorry, Lake Ridge.
And they know they're elite because they scheduled ridiculous in the non-district. They've scheduled some. I mean, obviously, Waxahachie's got to keep playing in this. I know you don't agree with it. I still do because that's a beautiful community deal. North Crowley's playing madness. They got what Aledo, South Lake, and Summer Creek. Duncanville's got Allen. I believe they're playing DeSoto over at the Cotton Bowl, which unfortunately I'll have to shoot. I say unfortunately because the Cotton Bowl is hottest place on earth in September. I pray for a tree to grow there at some point so I can sit under it. Not going to happen. These guys are just the matchups between each other are going to just be fabulous. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we're probably going to see a rematch with Duncanville and Waxahachie, regardless of how that goes. North Crowley has a really good opportunity to go D2 and see what kind of run they've got. I feel like I've got a lot of questions because it felt like a few years ago where Cedar Hill handed their keys to a new coach and Carlos Lynn, and it just wasn't what you would have expected it to be. It just for whatever reason
And
just
he
didn't.
did get him to a state title game, but it wasn't what you felt like. They got him to
Right.
that COVID game against Katy, but still, it didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right, and I felt like there was just a lot of disconnect there. So I'm nervous about Waxahachie and North Crowley. I get that there's a lot of programs in place there, so that's why I've got Duncanville one. And I mean, it could easily be a situation where all three of these teams, like last year, they all split with each other, and it ended up being 6-1, having a tri-district championship. That could happen again. I could see North Crowley ending up at the one seed. I feel like you got to get Duncanville early. I feel like this is more of a next week conversation, but I feel like early is the time to get Duncanville because they always get better. So I feel like Allen has a really good chance early against Duncanville because you don't get it much earlier than next week. Duncanville's not even used to playing games this early in the season.
They haven't even decided who the quarterback is. If you read the papers there, they don't
I
know who the
I
guys
gave a
are.
little
That's
bit of
just
I gave a little bit of shade about like what does Riddle want? Like what like Coach Samples knows Coach Samples does not feel obligated to tell Greg Riddle who his starting quarterback is. I mean, come on,
true, true.
it's going to be Mama's clear Denson. It's going to be Denson. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
I got that from Lone Star about 4 or 5 years ago. Yet we're not quite sure who it's going to be yet, and they knew it was going to be Shelley or whoever the heck it was at the time, or Rivers. But yeah, you're right. They're ready. Keep going. Hit them early.
But yeah, Trenton Yancey, Braden Arnold, a couple players to keep an eye on. But it feels like Duncanville still taking some steps back, like who's going to be next man up. But their JVs were always so good. Waxahachie, I mean, you got to talk to Jaquan on the television a couple of weeks ago. I mean, just absolutely incredible. They do lose Caden Tollison to Denton Ryan. But I mean, Talon Strange, Jordan Thompson, Aaron Snell, Cedric Marsh, Jordan Smith, Jerry Meyer, Jaquan Snell. I mean, these are D1 players. Clausen, I mean, you can see why they're excited
Right.
about that. But how are they going to gel with that new coach? Because Tollison understood culture.
Well,
Tollison
yeah, they
understood how
also
to win.
said, and I brought this up. I mean, Jaquan Snell said if it wasn't Lawrence Williams, there would have been mass exodus at that school, and who knows what they would look like. So they believe in the guy.
And they obviously do. And then Demarcus Harris, Coach Gates believes in him. He gave him
Absolutely.
an absolutely full throated recommendation there. They got JT coming back at quarterback after all that last year.
Torres.
Jacob Torres, he got declined,
And
but
he's got a lot of young receivers there, a lot of great junior receivers that will have, or will somebody will have the following year.
yeah, I mean, Demarion Mays, and they got Jerry Outhouse coming back. So not having John Meredith doesn't seem to impact them that much. But I still got some questions about the offensive line. I still have some questions about Torres at quarterback. How is he going to be after that year off? And what in this district against those defenses, he's a great player. I don't have questions about him as a player. I have questions about the matchups and how his support team is going to be able to protect him when you've got some really good defensive linemen. Everybody's great back in the pocket. When you go out to the opening and you go out and you're not being rushed, it all looks
Right.
great. But when you got two elite level defensive lines chasing you, we'll
That
see.
could be
We'll see.
trouble. Anybody in the back four have even a chance to get in the postseason, you think, or no?
Feels so weird that Red Oak, after as many good
Mm,
years as they've had, we got them at number 8. So I feel like Red Oak. I feel like there's a little bit more to Red Oak than what the models might be predicting. I think so. I could see them as high as 5 or 6 in this district, but I don't see anybody knocking off Lake Ridge. Lake Ridge is in that weird position where they're at number 4 and they're kind of stuck there, but they could make a playoff run. We'll have to find out when we get to bracketology, and you'll have to tell me if I'm crazy about these Houston teams because I don't know anything about these Houston teams.
Well,
That's you, Ward.
I just took in the coaches poll, so we'll find out what the coaches say compared to what you got in there. And let's start right here in Division One, uh, Region Two, where we have, as you predicted, a Duncanville Waxahachie rematch. I don't think anybody would disagree with you there. Uh, just looking on the Houston side of what we have here, I certainly agree with the Klein Oak. Everybody in 14-6A is going to be a clean sweep like 9-6A. They're going to get, and that includes Spring Westfield, I believe. On the other side, the Woodlands is very good. Klein's going through that issue with their coach. That don't really know who the coach is going to be for the whole year. So I agree with the Woodlands making it past Klein. I think Klein's going to win that game. I think the Woodlands will. But look on your side. I don't think have we ever seen your side, DFW. I call your side. What's happened to me? Am I a Houston guy all of a sudden? You got Duncanville and Royce City, and I don't think that's or not you, but the model does. Has that ever happened? That'll be an interesting matchup.
That would be brand new. But when you look at Duncanville and Waxahachie's road, it's not
Yeah,
competitive. I mean, it
no.
is just 28-30, across the board. And
Mm,
I'm looking at your side of the bracket, and I don't see a Bridgeland or anything that I can be like, oh, like I recognize that team. Obviously, the Woodlands is a blue blood, and the model has that effectively as a pick'em game,
yeah.
and it feels like Duncanville, the Woodlands, they've seen each other. So regardless of that, Duncanville will be very familiar. It feels like it's just Duncanville, Waxahachie,
Oh,
inevitable,
absolutely.
regardless of which side of the bracket you're on. It's not like the other side of the bracket is so much stronger where you got to be, that game puts you on the top half or the bottom half. There's really nothing there. I mean,
Right.
it's just what you got is what you got, and it's Duncanville, Waxahachie all the way.
Barring injuries, yeah. Barring injuries, there's nothing there that will say that it's not going to be that regional final. All right, let's go to the other side then. Division Two, where at least for the Houston side, I do really like Cy Falls. I like the way that this model has Cy Falls going all the way to Longview, which I do think will be a Longview win. I'm not even sure Magnolia makes the playoffs, but the model's got them winning twice. College Park is a good team with the new coach, so I see them going the exact same way as the model does. But no challenge for well, North Crowley's got North Forney to deal with in the second round, according to this, and that one actually could be game of the week type situation.
Yeah, that's what really interests me when you look at this is that bracket right there with North Forney and North Crowley. And regardless, because whether it's North Forney or whether it's Longview, whatever that is going to be the second round game, and that's going to be potentially I mean, go ahead and mark it down because we talked about so many good second round games in 5A Division One. That's going to be another incredible game. And North Forney, North Crowley are very, very close according to the computer model. If North Forney can take that step and North Crowley is struggling a little bit, you could absolutely see North Forney take a step forward and potentially win this region. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they have a really good chance to take steps forward. What do you think about Willis over there? I feel like I'm used to seeing Willis.
What you talking about, Willis? Oh, sorry. They have a star athlete. They had DJ Lagway, then they had Jermaine Bishop. This year it's going to be Lincoln Frazier, who's a sophomore quarterback. But I'm bullish on Cy Falls. I think they have a outstanding defense. I remember you saying, I don't know where's Bridgeland at. Well, they went from 16-6A all the way down to 23-6A. So you won't see Bridgeland until, and they didn't even know that. They were looking on there like, did the UIL kick us out of all football sports? And then they find themselves down there at 23-6A. But I like Cy Falls in that game, and I like the fact it's a 1-point game too. That'll be another second round matchup that we'd have cameras at if that's what happens there. But yeah, I'm a big Cy Falls fan this year. But I found it interesting that North Crowley's favored by 14 after we sang the praises of Longview beyond belief. It doesn't seem like, and you just question the trenches for North Crowley. That doesn't seem like it should be a 14-point spread.
I agree. I mean, the model is obviously a little bit higher on North Crowley over the last couple of years. I would have a hard time picking against Longview if that's the game, just because of Longview travels well. We'll get over there at Kincaid Stadium, North Crowley and Longview. We'll get some cameras out there for a regional final, and Lobo Nation will come out there. So I think that's
Kincaid or Mesquite Memorial. That's the only two stadiums that Longview plays. I think they got a hotel discount near there. Those are their spots.
But again, there's going to be some really fun football and some really interesting second round games. Longview, Rowlett, that's tough for Rowlett in the first round. We talked about they're out of there. Lake Ridge, I think Lake Ridge has a better chance to beat Harker Heights. I know Stepp and some others who cover statewide football are a lot higher on Harker Heights, but I think Lake Ridge Longview could be a really fun second round game if that happens in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that was fun. All right, you know what's fun is next week's live games. Next week's podcast will be previewing actual games, and there's probably going to be a ton of them because they're all bangers. We're bringing back fantasy football, so I got to get off on the right start. Every year I go 4-7, I can't stand it, but we'll see, and we'll see what kind of new AI toys that Diggsy brings out. It should be some interesting stuff.
We could have some point spreads, and we're going to feel like we should have a sponsor that's not allowed to have a sponsor, but you never know. It's just AI models. It's just for lunch.
And then following that week, we'll be bringing back flowers and shovels. This is another staple of my man Diggsy. So it's going to be fun. I can't wait.
I don't know. I got hit with some of those shovels last year. I still got I got some scars up here. Still trying to deal with that.
You got a DeSoto shovel upside the head at one point.
I did.
You got to shook it off. All right, Diggsy. I hope is everybody ready for the season? I'm ready for the season. Hopefully, we got you ready. I appreciate that you're doing all the hard work there with AI together and putting together some fun little brackets for us. Go support your team, man. I know it's hot out there, but go catch a game on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I know I am. I know Diggs probably is. I can't vouch for him on Saturday. Sometimes he might sleep in, but if a game's indoors, he'll be there. I know that. Not in 100-degree heat. Plus,
not going to Cotton Bowl.
Plus, he gets a chance to see Jerry Jones, his favorite of all time, so he'll be there.
Get a selfie.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Diggs, thanks a lot. We will see you all again next week for some live action.